الله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد عباد الله فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He should be praised. And I bear witness that there is no true deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of all things. And I bear witness that the Prophet Mohamed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final and last messenger. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not die except in a state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the state of Islam. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say what is correct, say the truth. If you do so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will rectify and correct your actions, and whomever obeys Allah and His Messenger, then he has already attained the ultimate success. Your brothers and sisters in Islam, the best of speech is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran. And the best of guidance is the guidance of His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the worst of matters are newly innovated matters in this religion, because whatever is newly innovated in this religion will lead you astray, and whatever will lead you astray will lead to hellfire. Before we start, can I ask the brothers to fill in any gap that they find in front of them? The closer you are to the Imam, the greater the reward is. This is, logically speaking, an easy way to get a reward. So don't be stingy upon yourself to get an extra reward. So if you have a fine space in front of you, just fill it in. It's also a form of sadaqah for those who come after you, that they don't have to stand up in the back. Jazakumullah khair. The next few moments, I would like to reflect on a couple of verses that were mentioned in Surah Al-Qasas. So hopefully, inshallah, we can extract some of the benefits from it that are perhaps important in our modern way of how we view the world. And this specifically story addresses the story of Qarun, who was from the people of Musa alayhi salam, from the people of Musa. So he's not from the people of Fir'aun. So essentially he was from Bani Israel. And many of these scholars of hadith actually say that he was actually his cousin. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he mentioned the story about Qarun, he said Azza wa Jalla, إِنَّ قَارُونَ كَانَ مِنْ قَوْمِ مُوسَى فَبَغَى عَلَيْهِمْ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ مَا إِنَّ مَفَاتِحَهُ لَتَنُوءُ بِالْعُصْبَةِ أُولِي الْقُوَّةِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that Qarun was from the people of Musa, however he was a tyrant against them. So even though he was the cousin of Musa alayhi salam, even though he was from Bani Israel, even though his people were being oppressed by Fir'aun and his people, yet Qarun himself was a tyrant against his people. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had gave him wealth. Wealth that is perhaps unparalleled, in terms for others that were in that time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it. He said, وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ مَا إِنَّ مَفَاتِحَهُ لَتَنُوءُ بِالْعُصْبَةِ أُولِي الْقُوَّةِ, that we gave him such treasures. And when you have treasures, you'd like to put them in safe places, in warehouses and whatever the case is, and you have keys for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said He had so much wealth that the keys that He had were so heavy that it was heavy upon a group of people trying to carry it. So this was how many keys to treasures and vaults he had. So can you imagine what is in these things, of how much wealth he had? But yet he was still a tyrant. And his people did not leave him, but rather they exercised al-amr al-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, in calling to what is good and forbidding what is evil, which is the job of this ummah also, not to leave those people who have went astray to be led astray, but rather it is our duty upon us to call them back. إِذْ قَالَ قَوْلَهُ قَوْمُهُ لَا تَفْرَحْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْفَرِحِينَ. Do not be exalt, jubilous and overjoyous. Now over here, they're not saying do not be happy in terms of the regular happiness we have, but rather don't be happy or jubilous or exalt to the point of that, or the type of exalt or happiness that would make you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A type of exalt to that, and joy that will result you to move away from the straight path, but rather disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they told him what he should do. وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. And so they told him, they instructed, he said, وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ. Use what Allah gave you to seek the house of the hereafter. So this is what you should do with your wealth, not become a tyrant, but rather use it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to build the house that you have in the hereafter. وَابْتَغِ مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. And as you're doing this, don't forget your share of this world. So they're not saying spend everything, but no, don't have your, it's okay to have some share, but don't forget what is the purpose of this wealth. To use it for the hereafter, to use it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. And be good similar to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was good to you. هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Is the reward of ihsan, is anything but ihsan? So how Allah, similar to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is good to you with providing you with bounties and blessings, you also need to be good in how you deal with the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be good to others. وَلَا تَبْتَغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And do not seek corruption in the world. Because quite often people, when they attain wealth, they start seeking corruption. وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do not seek it and desire it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the corrupt. But how did Fir'aun respond to this? He said, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ مِّنْ عِنْدِي. I was giving it. Why? I was given all these bounties. Why? Because of knowledge that I have. And Allah knew that because of this knowledge, I'm deserving of this wealth, so He gave it to me. Why are you complaining? Now the question is this an excuse? Is this why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives people bounties and blessings and wealth? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points to an indication of this wrong, why this concept is wrong. Because essentially Qarun is saying, Allah is pleased with me, He gave it to me because I am blessed, and so He's pleased, He gave me all this worth, all this wealth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing me something else. He said, أَوْلَمْ يَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَهْلَكَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ. That does He not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had destroyed from before Him groups of people that we have gave more, أَشَدُّ مِنْهُمْ قُوَّةً وَأَكْثَرُ جَمْعًا, that they had more strength and more wealth than He. Because He destroyed them is an indication that wealth does not equal I am pleased with you. This is something important we have to realize. Wealth in itself, when somebody has wealth, is not an indication that Allah is pleased with that person. أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ أَنَّا قَدْ أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِهِ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ مَنْ كَانَ هُوَ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُ قُوَّةً وَأَكْثَرُ جَمْعًا وَلَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذُنُوبِهِمْ وَلَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ. And He's not asked upon him, like the criminals are not asked about their sins. وَلَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْ ذُنُوبِهِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. Now did He stop at that reminder? No. He didn't even went a step further. And He decided to gloat and show people His wealth. فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ. Why? Maybe perhaps to distract the others. Now when He went out in His full adornments, whether His clothing, His wealth, whatever He had, He went out in the streets. The people of Bani Israel split into two groups. Those are believers And so when they saw this wealth that Qarun had, they literally split into two groups. قال الذين يريدون الحياة الدنيا يا ليتنا مثل ما أوتي يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون إنه لذو حظ عظيم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the first category. He said about those وقال الذين, those ones who have made that statement, those who desire this worldly pleasures. يريدون الحياة الدنيا. They want this life. What did they say? They said, we wish we had what Qarun has. For truly he is of great fortune. So the way they're measuring who is in great fortune and who's not is how? Through financial means. How much do you have in your bank account? What is your status? This to them is equal to great fortune. However, the other group were different. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ وَيْلَكُمْ ثَوَابُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ. Woe to you, the people of knowledge said, woe to you, what are you saying? ثَوَابُ اللَّهِ, the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, خَيْرٌ, is even better. لِمَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. For those who believed, not just that, but also performed good deeds. وَلَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. And they will not attain the reward except the ones who are patient. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afterwards, He moved to an imagery of what He did with Qarun. فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِهِ الْأَرْضِ. And so we allowed the earth to swallow him and his entire house and wealth. فَمَا كَانَ لَهُ, and there was not for him, فَمَا كَانَ لَهُ, he did not have any support or anybody to fend from him. Nor was he able to fend for himself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this was the story of Qarun, and how the people were split, and how he viewed wealth and what he did with it. In that story, there are many lessons we can get from it. I'm going to mention three quickly because we don't have much time. The first lesson is that we learn that wealth in itself is not a virtue. Wealth itself is not a virtue. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to whom He loves and whom He doesn't love. He gives it to whom He's pleased with and to whom He's not pleased with. He gave it to Qarun. Was he happy with Qarun? At the same time, He perhaps might not give it to those who are of a higher rank, in fact, messengers. Such as Musa alayhi salam. Did He give that wealth to Musa alayhi salam? No. Did it mean that He was not pleased with Musa alayhi salam? Absolutely not. So, wealth in itself is not a virtue. So why are people given wealth and others not? وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. Why? Because it's a test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that it is a test. We test people with wealth, with khayr, with good, and with things that bad happen to you. That is a test. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to whom He wills and He doesn't. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cared about wealth, He would not give it except to those whom He's pleased with. The point of wealth, I'm saying it's not a virtue in its own, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us for a reason, to test us what you're going to do with it. Would it make you become like Qarun and become a tyrant and disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you'd be like those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave wealth and they used it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And there are many like those in history. Just one an example is Uthman ibn Affan. He was known to be one of the wealthiest, but what did he do with his wealth? Wealth in itself is not a virtue. Why? What is virtuous is what you do with it. Do you spend it and use it to build your hereafter, or to ruin your hereafter? Do you use it to only build this world and leave the hereafter without nothing? Or do you use it to build perhaps both? Which brings us to the second benefit, is the instructions of what we can do with this wealth. وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ.
to use it, it's a means, by the way. Wealth in itself is not an end, and we have to remember this, because unfortunately, in the materialistic world that we live in, wealth became an end. It became the purpose itself. Why do you work?